How do I find the right creators for my partnership? How do I optimize my program? Where should I be spending my money? How do I find up and coming creators? Um, how do I measure success, especially for campaigns that might be more awareness based? Should I use someone who is established and like a VIP level creator? Or do I find someone in the micro tier who's up and coming and in a completely different space? And so that's the day to day. Those are the types of day to day questions. And for creators, those are the types of day to day questions that brands are starting to ask.
Welcome back to the podcast where we explore the creator economy and how you can succeed in it. Our guest today is an influencer marketing enthusiast and a data storyteller with a background in helping brands utilize data to make better decisions and authentically connect with their customers. Today we have Holly Jackson with us. Holly, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Jake. And thank you for going through the mouthful of my title that I use on LinkedIn. You did a good job.
That's all right. I lost my words for a second there, which anyone will sort of pick up. But anyway, we're moving past that. We're going to completely forget about that like it never happened. Holly, would love to hear a bit of an introduction for yourself for the creators that are listening to the podcast. How did you get started in influencer marketing and how did you get to where you are now? What's your story?
Yeah, of course. So for anyone listening, I'm not a creator myself. I am more on the measurement and insights and brand side of the industry. And I started my career in adjacent industries. So first job was in PR, then I moved into digital advertising, and it was actually an experience in digital advertising that really sparked my interest in the creator space because ultimately part of my role was trying really hard to help brands get in front of their core customers through ads. And in theory, great, get in front of them, find them, target them wherever they are on the internet. But sometimes you feel like you're grasping at straws to try to get the messaging in front of the right people where they are and ultimately to pay attention to those ads. And while I was working on a particularly challenging campaign for a B2B business, actually, um, I was talking to other people in this space and just really trying to figure out what is the right messaging, what is the right channel to get the brand message in front of the target audience. And um, my CTO at the time was like, well, the only person I'm going to listen to tell me about the tech that I'm working with are other people in my industry, people I trust. And a light bulb went off that I could work really hard in this digital advertising space and sort of do my best to help brands craft the perfect messaging and get in front of the right people at the right time. But it was still push. It was still push messaging that was trying to attract the right audience. And ultimately, there's a better channel, and that is exactly what my CTO said: is through people that you trust. Get recommendations from a trusted source that you want to pay attention to. And that's where you're going to ultimately make more of your decisions and put more of your effort into finding the right things for your life. And that's not just for B2B, not just for B2B software. Of course, that's for everything, whether you want to know what restaurant to go to or what pair of shoes to buy or what are the best diapers that don't leak for a newborn baby. You go to a source. You want to hear from someone who's experienced it and who has some level of expertise from it, whether that's your colleague, friend, sister, or someone online who has tried everything and who is an influential voice in the space. Um, so around the same time that I was coming to this realization, I got the opportunity to join Tracker, which is the company that I'm at now. Tracker is an all-in-one influencer tech platform that some of the biggest brands in the space use to power their influencer program. So there's an entire tech space around the influencer and creator industry right now that helps connect brands with creators and help streamline that workflow along the way. And that's exactly what Tracker does. And here we are, 7 years later. I am leading their global insights practice.
So, what does your day to day look like in the space then with your role? So, you've given us sort of your background, how you've got to where you are. Now, I'm super curious. What do you actually do on a day to day basis when you're connecting influencers, creators with the brand? What does that look? What does your a day in the life of Holly look like in the space?
Yeah, great question. And so ultimately, there are two things that power our work every day. The first one are questions from brands and from creators.
Mm.
What, how can they better work together? How do I find the right creators for my partnership? How do I optimize my program? Where should I be spending my money? How do I find up and coming creators? Um, how do I measure success, especially for campaigns that might be more awareness based? Should I use someone who is established and like a VIP level creator? Or do I find someone in the micro tier who's up and coming and in a completely different space? And so that's the day to day. Those are the types of day to day questions. And for creators, those are the types of day to day questions that brands are starting to ask. And the way that we answer those is with data. We see a lot of data and we see data at scale. So we're looking at not even just one country, but globally, what's going on in the creator space. How are creators shifting conversations? What platforms do they care about? What are topics that are trending? What are the differences between markets? What's going on in the US versus what's going on in India versus what's going on in Japan? And ultimately try to help these brands understand how they can make better decisions around their creator programs because they're investing a lot of money. They have a lot of money to spend. And the opportunity to continue to drive value with these creator partnerships is a key area of focus. And it's not just around, who's going to be able to drive the most sales for my company, but it's around building relationships. I think that's what everyone understands is there's still an art to the brand and creator relationship. It's not a total science. Yes, does this data help both brands and creators from the brand side make better decisions, from the creator side help position yourself in the right way to grow your audience, to get in front of the right brands? But when it comes down to it, it's still about creativity. It's still about liking the people that you work with. It's still about creators being able to connect with their audiences authentically. So all of that is still underlying and very important on the brand side. But having that data to back up their decisions and also to be able to act quickly and make decisions at scale is really, really important for these brands as they start to invest more and more money in the space.
So we're going to do a little scenario here, and I'd love to do this with you. And it just flew into the top of my head and was not pre-planned at all. So let's say I'm the creator, right? Let's say I'm a micro influencer. Let's say I'm sitting around like 50,000 followers, and primarily I'm like doing short form content. I want to work with a brand. What statistics would I need to prepare in order to make a good pitch to whether an agency that works with the brands on the other side, or directly to a brand that a brand would be looking for? And is it uh, something like your engagement rate, the amount of views you get consistently on average? Is it uh, the amount of content that you put out and what does well? Like what are the brands looking for in terms of just an initial pitch, in terms of that kind of data that allows them to go, okay, we like this creator, we want more information. Then they dive deeper into their analytics.
Yep. So I think you've nailed a couple of them. That the first thing brands are looking to do with creators is to analyze at some extent what is their ability to generate attention at scale amongst their target audience. So the things you're looking at there are on the past content that you've created. What is your engagement rate? How many engagements and views are you driving? Are you creating organic content? Have your past paid partnerships been creative but also professional? Did they also do well? You don't see a huge dip in performance in your paid partnerships. and you put a lot of effort and professionalism into your work. The second piece is audience alignment, which is pretty interesting. So it's not just about having millions and millions of followers, like you mentioned. You can be a micro influencer, but if you have a super engaged audience that reaches their core customer, that's potentially more value to them than to just spread the messaging far and wide. So think about it as like really targeted advertising versus paying for a Super Bowl ad, where you want to make sure it doesn't matter if you get in front of millions and millions of people. If they're not the people who are ready to listen to your message, then it's not going to be worth what you're paying for it. So also know your audience demographics. Talk about, be able to talk about your past partnerships, and also be able to present yourself around what you stand for and who you are. One of the
Mm.
really interesting things that is trending with brands this year that hasn't always been that way in the past is that brands are starting to think about segmenting and expanding their creator communities and creator partnerships beyond just the traditional way of saying, like, let's say you're a beauty brand and you're looking for the right creators. Do you tap into like that core set of beauty influencers who have millions and millions of followers? Maybe in the past that was a good strategy, but actually now brands are starting to think about like, okay, let me think about what my actual the right mix is by tier. Yes, maybe we have a couple of larger influencers who are truly established and can reach large audiences at scale. But then let me also find some smaller creators who have real influence within specific communities. So thinking beyond just like, I'm a beauty influencer, I only talk about beauty. But think about all the things that interest you and all the things that might be interested to brands, and start tagging those brands that you want to potentially get a partnership with. So, even let's say if you're primarily a creator who creates content where you're cooking and you're sharing recipes, but you wear the same mascara in your posts every day and you love that mascara, tag that brand. That is something that is an interesting new opportunity for the brand, and might get you on their radar. So don't limit yourself to just like
Mm.
exactly your lane, what you talk about. Think about everything that makes you you and makes you interesting to your audience, and really lean into that.
Yeah, fascinating that you said that. And this is a little like exercise all creators can do right now to really capitalize on what you've just said is look around the room, wherever you are. If you're at home, what equipment do you use day to day in your content, right? I've got a Rode podcasting mic here that I use for podcasts. If I was to really lean into it, I could tag Rode in pretty much every podcast clip I do just because I use a Rode Podcaster. I have a HyperX headset. I use a Samsung phone. I've got a Cougar keyboard and some random mouse, but like that's just an example of what you could do. So think about what content, what do you have in your background, like every day. I think there's a really great example of what creators can be doing to reach out to. It's like, it doesn't matter what content you create, like you said. And the other thing I sort of thought that might be really good to talk about, and you mentioned creators knowing their values, etc., and knowing what they stand for, which is so important, but also in their content, what niche, and I'm starting to hate the word niche, but I'm going to say it anyway. What do you stand like in terms of build your content around? What's your primary focus? What's your secondary focus? And then, if you've got a hyper engaged audience, take that to brands because they want those hyper engaged smaller audiences. And I don't know if the phrase is very common in the creator space for creators, but seeding is a thing that is happening. And I don't know if it's something we should talk about because we're giving away all the juice, but I feel like it's something to be aware of is that the brands are looking to collaborate with smaller and up and coming micro influencers because they want to build long term relationships that will get them more exposure as the creator grows. So I feel like the smaller creator compared to 10 years ago has a lot more ammo and opportunity to land these amazing partnerships with the brands that they dream of, just because brands are looking to collaborate with them now on a very frequent basis. Is that a trend that you're seeing?
100%. Seeding and building a relationship organically is one of the key steps in the brand's process of acquiring a larger creator set, or bringing people into the fold to start talking to them and having it building that relationship outside of just finding someone on a cold call that you want to say, hey, do you want to promote my partner or promote my product? It's not like that anymore. And brands are also have the technology and the ability, using a tool like Tracker even, to find people who are mentioning them who are not on their radar. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you're a small creator, even if you're just tagging them, even if you're just having a conversation with your audience about them, you're a good fit for being on their next seeding list. So keep talking about these brands that you want to work with. They're listening and they're open to you, whoever you are. Think about I was polling my team on like, what are some of the niche influencer stories that you can think about where like something kind of strange started and ended up being something that a lot of people were interested in. And one of my team members was saying, "Oh, remember like the ASMR creators in 2020 on YouTube, and how that started off as something that was strange, and then suddenly they started getting partnerships with beauty and fashion and food, or like Tube Girl in London. There are like different types of creators who get on the radar for doing something kind of interesting, maybe kind of out there. But they people pay attention to them and brands pay attention to them, and they're out there and they want to find people who are creating engagement with audiences, even if it's around these like niche topics that no one knew were that promising or exciting or engaging. So that's another tip too, is just like lean into the things that you like,
Mm.
be somewhat personal and vulnerable and talk about things and think about how you can help your audiences, and that's how you'll continue to grow your followers, and that's how you'll continue to build that authentic engagement with them. And chances are they're going to want to talk about the things that you like and the things that you dislike and what you recommend. And so, it all starts with talking about things that you're passionate about and that you care about. And that's really easy for both audiences and for brands to see through, is if you're just trying to jump on the newest trend versus, creating a conversation around something, even if it only appeals to a small subset of the larger customer base. It's interesting and it's something that more brands want to get involved in.
I'd be interested to see how. Now, this just popped into my mind when you were mentioning like Tube Girl and the different creators there, that the ASMR that was just kind of weird at first and then just went boom and now it's a thing, right? The TikTok live AI, people acting like the AI. You've seen those where they're on the live stream, they're acting like they're just pretending to be a robot, and it's utterly ridiculous. But I'm like, that is, there's quite an opportunity there, even if a brand would like to partner with a creator that's doing something as funny as that just standing in public repeating the same phrases. And I even saw one, I don't know his name. He dresses as a Spider-Man version of Miles Morales, and he started to make content outside of the live stuff that's popping up in the feed, and then he's sort of breaking into the mainstream just from that. So from something really obscure and weird that everybody was like, ha ha, ha, that's ridiculous, why are you doing that? He's managed to convert an engaged following who is actually interested in his stuff from doing something completely different. And now, there's a potential huge pathway for him to just be in that unique, really weird niche of influencing in that space too. Have you seen that? What are your thoughts on that kind of trend in the content space at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, something you touched on there that I think is on everyone's mind is humor. People like to laugh. Uh, Everyone's developing a sense of humor. Brands are developing good senses of humor and being more open to taking what would have seemed risky in the past to partner with a creator who's so out there, and like move away from what their core brand values. But it's different now. It's not about tailoring everything that's said, but being a part of those conversations. And a huge way of succeeding and generating audience engagement is through humor. And I like the way that brands are sort of adopting this idea of having a sense of humor is not a bad thing, not only through creators, but through themselves as well. And even for something that seems a little off or strange, it generates conversation, it creates some interest. And I tend to think about it this way. Every time I see something online that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's strange, but also I've asked that question in the past, I'm always thinking to myself, like, oh yeah, there's lots of people who have weird thoughts and strange thoughts throughout the day that they're looking for other people to connect on. And those That's really powerful to be able to have those communities of people who are saying things that might not have ever been said or done um, online in the past 10 years. And so I just think it's fun. I think it's allowing everyone to have an individual personality and make that okay. And because of that, brands are starting to think about ways that they can incorporate humor into their strategies. And I think one of the I don't know if you saw this. It happened in the U.S. maybe max 2 days ago. um, the brand CeraVe, so like the skincare brand, um, worked with one of their ambassadors, their creator ambassadors. And I guess there had been a lot of chatter in the comments of like, oh, CeraVe should work with Michael Cera, or like Michael Cera is the best brand ambassador for CeraVe, and like they should work together on a skincare line for awkward people or something, like kind of joking in a lot of the comments. And 2 days ago, using one of their skincare ambassadors, she created this video where she walked into a pharmacy in Brooklyn and Michael Cera's in there signing bottles of CeraVe. And of course, he's coming on as a paid ambassador, but it's funny because it kind of took this organic conversation and this joke about the brand and turned it into a real opportunity. And then they involved their creators as well and gave their creators an opportunity to create content with this celebrity in the video and find this like funny moment. And it was just really fun to me to see something like that come to life because, first of all, that never would have happened 10 years ago, I bet. Like, can you imagine a big brand like that getting all of the approvals to take a risk like that and to build this idea off of something that they saw in comments on social media and bring it to life across all these different departments? And so I just thought it was really fun and cool, and that it's something different. It'll generate attention, and it's something that not all brands are doing. So I applaud brands when they try to do something a little bit different, try to not take themselves too seriously. And platforms like TikTok are the best place to do that.
It's so interesting. I think there's a massive opportunity. So, if a creator who has one of those really intrinsic thoughts and thinks, all right, you know what? I'm actually going to talk about this, right? They talk about it. It's a super niche, weird thing. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to put myself out there. They go viral. They get millions of views, lots of comments and engagements, people putting their hand up going, wow, that is so me. I didn't think anybody else understood that really niche problem. All of a sudden, there could be a really cool opportunity for a brand to just hit that creator up and just get approval. And all of a sudden, a day later, they've collaborated, or 2 days later, they've collaborated in some really great way that's going to give the brand a lot of attention and give the creator, they're getting a paycheck and getting them a lot of attention around their content too. Have you seen any other moments like that in the space where a brand has just capitalized on a quick video that's came out and done really well and brought that creator in and done something amazing with them?
Yeah, your example of or your thought about putting personal moments out there and generating interest on them brought to mind another example that happened, I think, back in May in the U.S. There's a TikToker with more than 500,000 followers. She was doing her bleaching her hair at home, and basically videoed herself the whole time. And while she was washing out the bleach, she had some mishap. All her hair started falling out. And she put this vulnerable moment of her with her hair that went from long to like this short bob that's kind of all different lengths and messy and bleached not well, up on TikTok, and was very vulnerable about what happened to her. She didn't want other people to make the same mistakes that she did. She showed her whole journey and was very vulnerable about the results. And we saw two hair care brands, both K18 and Bellamy Hair, jump on the opportunity to help her. So come to the rescue to an extent, where they flew her out to LA, had them meet with their stylists, and had them document the whole journey, where they helped her fix this hair disaster. And when you think about it, for being able to jump on that moment before anybody else and start engaging, first of all, everyone was paying attention. Everyone felt so sorry for this poor girl, and her DIY bleaching accident. And then their hairstylist created content around it. This influencer created content around it. They reshared it on their own channel. So suddenly it's like multiplying the reach of this one story that went viral from one person to a couple of accounts. And they repurposed it in so many different ways. And ultimately, they were helping somebody too. It's not like they were only thinking about, getting their brand name out there, but that they also could help someone who was in a tough situation. And so it just became a moment that felt so authentic and was a great opportunity for, again, for brands to pay attention to things that are happening in the space. What are creators saying on TikTok? What's trending? What do creators care about? How are they being vulnerable, and how can they help in those situations? And that creates a better story and a more authentic partnership and messaging than just, hold up my product and pitch to everyone how you should use my code to buy it. So it's a totally different space, and it's really fun. Those stories are so fun to hear, because you just imagine that everyone working on them had so much fun trying to figure it out and putting together all the logistics and getting all the content created, and that the creator felt so validated in their ability to be heard, and that people were paying attention and that people cared, and the brands were able to work quickly and move fast and jump into an organic moment that turned into a really good opportunity for them to help out.
Yeah, because brands like they're not primed to they're now primed, sorry, to be able to jump on opportunities like this, and more are becoming open to the idea if we can get really quickly here, we can generate a lot of exposure, awareness, income for ourselves through just viral moments. You've got to be kind of using an app, probably potentially like Tracker, scanning the internet for mentions, etc., of products or things that you can jump on. I don't know if there's a scanning for keywords, but also you've also got to kind of be there. You've got to be on your phone and be able to say, oh, this video has actually come out. What can we do here? And I think it just opens such an opportunity up for the small, any creator, not a small creator, because it can happen to anyone, right? It doesn't matter if they had 500,000 followers. You could have 10 followers. You could post a video. You could wake up. You could have 100,000 followers, and you could have 10 tags, 100 DMs, 5 brands wanting to work with you, and that can just happen overnight. I remember I posted one video that I shoddily recorded of me having an interaction with a Twitch streamer, and at the time I'd asked them, what made them happy, and that was the question. And I posted it, came back the next day, and then eventually it was 2 million views, and I was like, what the hell happened here? And that can just happen to anyone at any time, any place. And I think that's just a brilliance of being a creator. Like, there's, if you want to make a living, or not even make a living, but if you want to work with a brand, anyone can work with a brand. It's so accessible these days, and I think that's the really exciting part of being a creator. And that's why I love that being a creator is now being viewed more and more as a legitimate career path. And I think the narrative is going to shift again over the next 5 years. Won't even go as far out to say as 10 years, because in 5 years, if you go up to someone, let's say your grandparents at Christmas, and you say, yeah, I'm a full-time creator, I create content, it might not be as, oh, what is that? Like, that might be a more open idea, because it's being talked about more in mainstream brand partnerships between big creators. If we'd say, like, let's just say KSI and Logan Paul, they came out to Australia. It was documented heavily by our TV stations here content creators are getting a lot of attention now, big. So that's going to filter down to the small as well. So I think this is a really exciting time to be creating content, and it's never going to stop.
Yeah, I mean, full credit to the creators to be able to change the way that these brands that have been around for years and have a certain way of operating and have always had a certain way of doing business, mostly through traditional media and advertising. And over the past couple of years, have creators have been able to make enough of an impact to get them to shift budgets to the creator space, to get them to shift their habits. Like I can't imagine that a brand 5, 10 years ago would have ever, first of all, listened to their social media managers who might have found these opportunities and then given them a voice to suggest an idea around doing something and then be able to execute on that quickly. That's such a huge shift in the way that brands operate, brands, marketing systems, and processes operate. That's just a huge testament to, one, the power of creators and how much they've done to change the space, but also two, to the opportunity there, because more and more brands will catch on and be able to um, actually uh, um, truly, what was the word I'm looking for? Uh, Encapsulate um, uh, the opportunity with creators and to showcase what that's actually doing to help them drive their brand forward. And it's such an exciting time to be a creator in the space because it's hard work, first of all. I'm not gonna lie. There's opportunities, but it's not just going to come to everyone. There are a lot of things that creators can do to think about how to position themselves in the right way, and a lot of that has to do with authenticity, but of course, professionalism and keeping up with the space. But the opportunity to, like you said, build an entire career around doing something they love and being passionate about something and being really good at it, um, without having to have like a traditional background, I think is really exciting, and is a great opportunity for creative people to really position themselves well in the space and in the industry and as powerhouses in marketing.
Now, I have some rapid fire questions for you before we wrap up the show. So, the first question is, what are three types of content creators could be posting right now to sort of build their brand?
Yep. Okay, so my first thing is, um, if you're funny, be funny. If that includes being self-deprecating or asking a silly question, or commenting on something funny, go for it. That is always going to come off as genuine. And that ties into my second piece is talk about something you care about, and make it personal, even if it involves being vulnerable. Again, you're trying to connect with people who might also be experiencing something similar and are looking for to create that connection with someone else in the space. And my last tip is tag those brands. They're listening. Tag the brands that you really like. Tag a new brand that you just found. Tag the mascara that you're wearing, the microphone that you're using. Tag a brand that you are just really passionate about the way that they're doing business or their products or something. The manifest that brand partnership in a way, but also that's one of the ways to get in front of these brands is to just keep talking about them and tell your audiences why it matters and why you're passionate about them. That will show up, and that will come off as the most authentic way to get their attention.
Awesome. Next question. What could a creator do, doesn't matter any medium, that they could do to that's kind of left field to differ themselves? We've seen the Tube Girl, we've seen the ASMR, we've seen the AIs on the lives. Do you see something emerging right now, or is there anything you could think of that might help a creator differ themselves right now?
So I don't necessarily have anything. I don't have the next Tube Girl idea. I wish I did. And if I did, hopefully I would act on it myself.
Would you do it? That's the thing.
I don't know, probably not. But that's actually part of it is take risks, do something
Yeah.
different. Um, Even if it feels a little uncomfortable. I think that uncomfortable or shows some sort of vulnerability. I guess be okay with making mistakes, um, and try something new. Don't just try to copy what someone else has done, but just think about like your unique perspective. What makes you you, and why is that interesting? Like for example, I'm not going to talk about um, things that I don't know about, but you know, I live in New York City. I live in a 1 bedroom apartment, and I have a toddler, and someone was asking me the other day, how do you do that within such a
Yeah.
contained space? And part of me was like, I'm never going to show you because it's messy and it's chaotic. And people who live in suburban America or anywhere in the world and have a larger house and have all this access to space are going to find it funny that like what I've done in my situation. But that's just it. Like if I really wanted to be a creator in this space, that's what I would do is show you how challenging and messy it is to live in an urban environment in an affordable way and raise a family. And that's the type of stuff that one is going to resonate with more people because there are other people who care about that, and two, that you're going to come off and sound actually knowledgeable about, but also share the same challenges that other people in those situations have. So it's not about creating this perfect aesthetic of like, oh well, you know, I all of my rooms are clean and wallpapered and you know I have lovely white furniture everywhere. Absolutely not. My life is sometimes chaotic and messy, and that's just life, and probably more people can relate to that.
Beautiful. And last question: what are a couple of things that we've probably already talked about that we can use to wrap up the episode that we can challenge micro influencers to do to help them build their pitch for working with brands? And then what is your call to action for them in order to actually take action on that?
Yep. So, kind of tying up everything we talked about. The first one is for micro influencers, build that credibility, create your story. And if you're an expert in the space, great, showcase your expertise. If not, sometimes it's okay to let your audiences learn along the way. Maybe you're studying to be a nurse and or a dermatologist. That's a big segment that's really taken off. Are like these medical experts who consumers want to hear from when they're asking about skincare. But even if you're not a dermatologist, let's say you're going to renovate your house and you've never done it before, that's okay too. Bring your audience along with you or with yeah, bring your audience along with you as you learn and you figure it out and you make mistakes and you become an expert at something, and share how you're finding the information, what went wrong, what went well, what you would do different next time. I think also just all think about developing an in-depth knowledge of your platform as well, and also the way that creators have gained visibility on that space. Are you primarily on TikTok? Learn about their algorithm, because it's not just about you, right? It's about a platform that has an algorithm to get content in front of the right people. There's lots of documentation on how the TikTok algorithm works. If you're on TikTok and you want to grow your audience, read up on it and learn about it and think about ways that you can become a larger part of that conversation and make sure your content is has the best chance to go viral. Use the hashtags, tag the brands. All the things I've said in the past are still ring true here. Is just like be authentic, but also start to think about ways to be a professional in this space. Learn more about creating content. Learn more about how to shoot video and how to edit. Up your game in different ways that will help you become more professional in your space, because it is a professional space and there's a lot to learn, but there's also lots of materials out there for you to learn, and it's all available. And get smart about it and figure out how to help yourself build a brand and connect with your audiences in a way that is interesting for them.
Honestly, as we wrap this up, I think that might be one of the most important things is be professional and treat it like a profession, because it is a serious career. If you want to do this full time, you need to treat it as a business, as a profession for yourself. You need to take your work very seriously. The things like the communication being very timely, communicating where you're at in the process of creating the content for the brand, if you're scripting, if you're writing the ideas, if you're editing, what you're doing, if you have questions, if you're not sure, communicate that. I think the communication I've seen and I've heard from a lot of brands working in the UGC space is they've worked with creators before. Yeah, sure, the content might be good, but they took a week longer to deliver the content that they promised, and they didn't give them a reason why. There was a lack of communication, and they just thought that it left a bad taste in the mouth because the creator didn't seem professional. So yeah, you can have all the good content creation skills in the world, but you need to treat it like a profession and like you were working for someone, and be professional with your interaction, be timely with your communication, present yourself well, and just be a good person. And remember, there are people on the other side of these emails, on the other side of these online profiles, that are almost depending on you to carry yourself in a professional way, because it impacts them if you don't conduct yourself in a professional manner. So don't give creators a bad rep. We all want to take this to the next level. Be really great communicators, ask great questions. And if you're not sure, ask the questions that you're not sure about, and just, conduct yourself as you would if it was a normal 9 to 5 career. Be a professional in the space. If you want to take it far, be professional. I don't know. So that was my little rant that just came out of me out of nowhere. But Holly, thank you so much for sharing all things influencer marketing, what brands are looking for, what data they're using to make data-driven decisions, how creators can partner with brands. Some really cool tips there in terms of tagging the brand. I feel like I'm going to tag Rode in every episode or every video now I use with my microphone, barely visible. Even if you can't tell it's that brand, I need to make it very obvious and pull the logo straight into the camera. Yes, Rode, look, see, I'm using your stuff. But you've shed a lot of knowledge bombs, insights that are really going to help a lot of creators take the next step in their influencer and / creator professional career. So thank you so much for sharing all of those things with us today.
No, this was so much fun. I'm happy to talk anything about the creator space anytime. It's so much fun, and it's entertaining to hear from both sides too. I mean, there's so much opportunity for the brands, so much opportunity for the creators, but I think you've nailed it in that sense of it's still people working with people. So that is the core of everything. It's connecting with people. It's building relationships. It's being professional. It's helping each other, being a nice person. All of that will get you very far in this space. And so, yeah, it was great talking to you, Jake. Thanks for having me on, and happy to come back anytime you want to talk what's next on either side of the brand creator opportunity.
Lovely. Where can people connect with you, Holly? Where are you most active in the space if people want to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so honestly, I am the most active on LinkedIn. I'm constantly talking about this. I'd love to chat with you if you have questions about the space. Ping me, find me on LinkedIn. I have an easy name to spell and remember, and you can often find me chatting in different influencer conversations that come up in the space. So definitely most prominent on LinkedIn, and find me there, especially if you have any questions about the business side of things. I'm happy to help out and give my input and advice.
Also extremely underrated is LinkedIn. As my closing thoughts, if you're a creator, you're going to learn so much if you follow the people that work on the other side of where you want to be and the brands that you want to partner with. You go and follow those people on LinkedIn. It is a wealth of knowledge. So you can sit there and just scroll all day and absorb so much stuff that just isn't getting shared in the traditional avenues of short form content at the moment. So Holly, an absolute pleasure to have you here today to share all that with us. And creators, can't forget you guys, thank you so much for joining and tuning into this episode on influencer marketing and learning the things that are going to help you become better creators, but also make a slight transition or a full transition into being the full-time creator that you want to be, to get the brand partnerships that you want to, and just live the life that you want to live. So really appreciate your time again today on this episode of The Creator Landscape, and thank you very much, everyone.